All right, it's the next installment in our Keep or Dump series. We're going to look at Liverpool. I'm Gav Marcotti. This is the ever cheery Mark Ogden. Give us a big smile there. There you go. A reminder of what we're trying to do here. We are trying to play sporting director. Yeah. I'll be Michael Edwards and you'll be Richard Hughes? Or the other way around?
Well, that kind of makes me the boss because Richard Hughes is in charge of the big decisions, really. So I'm happy with that.
Oh, it's not the chief executive of football, which is actually Michael Edwards' title?
I think Michael Edwards is happy to let Richard Hughes, have autonomy on this.
And what we're trying to do here, we're trying to look at it from the perspective of squad building. This is what we would do. It's not what we think Liverpool will do necessarily. And we're going to look at budgets. We're going to look at PSR. We're going to try to consider it that way. So, Mark, the starting point is most people thought this was going to be a transition season, given the first year under Arne Slot and the first year under Richard Hughes and the first year in the new role for Michael Edwards. It wasn't a transition season. It was a title-winning season. Is there such a thing as title coming too soon?
Maybe you could have a delayed transition. I mean, the title can never come too soon, can it? But I do think that there is a transition coming. I think Arne Slot has done a fantastic job considering what he's brought in. Federico Chiesa, who's barely kicked a ball. So
37 or 38 minutes of Premier League action so far.
So you could argue that the work was done maybe 2 summers ago. There was a big overhaul at Liverpool in Jurgen Klopp's final summer. They brought in, several midfielders, Szoboszlai, Alexis McAllister, Endo came in, I think Gravenberch as well. So they made big changes then. And prior to that, I think they brought in Cody Gakpo in the January. So if you backdate it a bit, the transition already started, but obviously they're now at a point where we had the contract situations with Van Dijk, Salah and Alexander-Arnold. 2 of the 3 have been resolved as we speak. So a transition has happened, but there is definitely a bigger transition coming this summer because you look at the age of the players that they've got in the contract situation.
You could kick down the road, but you'll be in a much weaker position. There will be people who argue, this is a title-winning side. Let's just tweak it. Let's replace Trent if he goes. Let's replace Darwin because nobody seems to like him. And let's leave it at that because this team was so good last year. I think we both think this would be a mistake. Now, the good news is Liverpool have a ton of latitude to go and make changes. They're very PSR compliant. And you reckon they could go as high as £150 million of net spend?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. All the indications coming out of Liverpool, it's going to be a big summer.
They have a lot of maneuverability, which other clubs don't do. They're also in a pretty decent position contract-wise, although, again, stuff that you need to resolve this year, if not next year, with one big exception, which we'll get to. But let's start on this. Goalkeepers, we have our list here. Alisson is 32. His deal expires in 2027. Immediately, there's a question mark. Do you keep and extend him, like I would do? Because to me, it's a no-brainer. He's not that old. Or do you wait to extend him, considering you've invested big in some other goalkeepers, which we'll get to?
Yeah, I mean, I think, obviously, he's 32. He's one of the top 3 goalkeepers in the world. He's proved that this season with Liverpool and consistently. So I think, obviously, you want to keep him. But in terms of extending him, you have to bear in mind that by the time his contract expires in 27, he'll be 34, pushing 35. So do you really need to extend him right now? I'd say they've made a big investment in Mamardashvili, who's going to arrive this summer from his loan at Valencia. So I think he sits out with Alisson Becker.
So you bigged up Mamardashvili again. He has a deal through 2031, which is a very long deal. He was on loan at Valencia. Didn't have a great season. Certainly had a better season the year before. He's still a young keeper. He's unusual in that he is enormous. He is a very, very tall man. I think a slightly different profile from Alisson and certainly Keller. If you're going to bank on Mamardashvili, and would your thinking be to have him as your number 2?
Yeah.
Then what do you do with your friend Kevin Keller, who's done well when called upon?
Kevin Keller has been looking to get away now for the last 18 months. I mean, we're going back to the January 24 window and there's strong interest from Nottingham Forest, but Liverpool were looking for, north of £25 million for him. And, that isn't going to happen for a goalkeeper. I just don't see the market being there for, Keller is a very good goalkeeper, but I don't see that happening. So 18 months on, he went public last year, Keller, saying that he wants to play. And he's not going to play if he stays at Liverpool.
But we both agree if he does move this summer, it's going to be for a small fee. It's not going to be 25 million. It's going to be closer to 10 million.
I think they'll hold out for 20. I think you're right. I think
what they'll do. What would you do?
10 million is too low.
You would keep him.
No. I'd try to move him on, and I would try to get 20 million for him.
Jaros was the third goalkeeper last year. He's got a year left on his contract. I think we both agree it's time for him to try to move him on. You're not going to get much for him. Moving on to the defenders. This is, for me, is the big one. Ibrahim Konate has a year left on his contract. We were both a little surprised that they kind of let it get to this point where he's got a year left.
Yeah.
Obviously, they had 3 major contract negotiations to deal with last year. So maybe that took priority. For me, I'd be a little bit concerned, and I would make this a priority and say, listen, Virgil's going to be going at some point. You are going to be our defensive mainstay. And presumably Slot feels the same way.
Oh, absolutely. He has to be the priority this summer. 25 years old, absolute key part of their title-winning team. I do think Liverpool will add to the centre-backs this summer, but regardless, you have to keep Konate. Whether he's the first choice next year or not, you have to keep him.
Virgil van Dijk, 33 years old, 2027. He's extended his deal through 2027. We both agree that's a good thing because it's the right length. It's 2 years and it's the right price. It was really important, I think. Joe Gomez, 27 years old, 2027 expiry. This is where you normally think about extending if you think the guy would have a market. But with so many injuries, even though he's very versatile, we both like him, you can't extend him now. Kwanzaa, 22 years old, 2029, and they have an option for another year. This is one where we disagree.
Yeah, he's not really kicked on this year because Slot doesn't seem to trust him, or Slot is obviously so, behind Konate and Van Dijk that he's not had enough games. But there was a time last summer when Newcastle were very keen on Kwanzaa and Liverpool, insisted they weren't going to let him go. But a year on, I guess they were expecting to kick on and make some progress. So
what would you do?
I would move him on.
I would keep him pending a long conversation with Arne Slot about Kwanzaa, because you would have to have the conversation and say, listen, last year you rotated very little. I think it clearly cost us in the second half of the season. Nobody's going to blame you for that. There's a good reason you didn't rotate much. Next year's going to be different. I think we need options because Virgil's going to be older. We will look to bring in a top-tier central defender, and obviously maybe Gomez will be fit as well, and he can be your fourth defender. But what's your deal with Jarell Kwanzaa? Do you not like him? Why didn't you play him more? And I think you're guided by that. Kostas Tsimikas and Andy Robertson. Let's almost do these together because we both agree you only keep one of them. Tsimikas is younger, 28 years old. He has a deal through 2027. Andy Robertson, 31. He has a deal. He's just one more year, 2026. So he's a free agent at the end of next season.
Look, Robertson's a better defender than Tsimikas, and he always has been, but there's a 3-year difference there, like you say. And I think if they bring in Milos Kerkez, which looks like Liverpool want to do, then Kerkez will play, and then Robertson won't. I think Tsimikas is more able to be the second choice left back than Andy Robertson. Andy Robertson will not want to hang around on the bench. It's a bit like Jordan Henderson situation. He'll want to play. And bearing in mind that he's out of contract next summer as well, I think the time is to move Robertson on. I think he's been a great servant for Liverpool. Fantastic buy from Hull. £8 million, was it? About 8-9 years ago. But I think in terms of moving forward, he's not going to be the number one left back. I think it's easier to have a two of Tsimikas and Kerkez than Robertson grumpy about not playing.
Like I said, I disagree. And again, this is where you have to talk to the player. If you go to Robertson and you say, listen, we're going to let's pretend it is Kerkez or some other very attacking left back. You may say, listen, in some game, Kerkez is going to be our number one choice, but in some games, we're going to want a more defensive option. It's going to be you. A year from now, walk on a free. Trent Alexander-Arnold has been released on a free.
We don't know that yet.
Well, we don't know that yet. Sorry.
Are you breaking a story there?
Sorry. My bad. So this is what we think they should do.
Yeah.
And the reason I just say this, look, I think they put a number to him to extend his contract. And it was not a number that he was comfortable with. And he wants to go somewhere else. I'm totally okay with it. You say thank you. I presume the number's still there. If he wants to stay until he signs with another team, I would leave that door open. Once he signs with another team, that door is closed. We think that is his will. And so that's what's going to happen,
Yeah, I don't think it's ever been a situation where what number Liverpool can offer him. We think he's going to go to Real Madrid, and it's the appeal of playing for Real Madrid, playing in La Liga, a different challenge, playing, winning the Ballon d'Ors as a right back at Real Madrid, etc. So the only thing that I could see changing his mind is there's been a bit of a swing in Spain at the moment whereby, Barca are the rising force and Real have got a few issues, new coach coming in potentially, or probably, issues with chemistry in the team. Maybe winning the weekend and the celebrations at Anfield might make him think, I'm leaving at the wrong time. But I don't think that's going to happen. But I think
if we were in charge, right, which we're pretending for this exercise,
I'd move him on.
But leaving that aside, the contract that we offered him at terms that we were comfortable with, you're not going to withdraw that contract until he signs with another club, right?
No, but I'm pretty sure.
This is the key point when I say this is our strategy. We're trying to make a strategy here, right? We're not saying, no, be gone.
No, absolutely. But I think...
Because the scenario you outlined, I think, is a very real one. Real Madrid will likely have a different coach next year. The new coach might be like, I don't really want Alexander-Arnold. Sorry, Florentino. I know in the past you're the guy signed everybody based on your Panini sticker collection. Mm-hmm. I don't like him. I want a different profile of right back. I want to spend our money elsewhere, right?
Well, Alonso plays 3 at the back. So
Sorry?
Alonso plays 3 at the back at
Sometimes.
Yeah, but anyway. So there are
Sometimes
stylistic things that might not work for Trent.
On the Connor Bradley point, he's 21 years old, 2027. He's done well replacing Alexander-Arnold. I think this is a keep and extend situation. And
I've got conflicting thoughts on this. And what they are, basically, the first one is, if he starts the season as the first choice right back, that comes with a different kind of pressure. He has to be able to handle that, knowing that he's no longer got Trent to kind of bail him out when he's when he's lost a bit of form. So the pressure of being the first choice right back at a Champions League club like Liverpool is a big thing. So how does he handle that? I'm sure he'll handle it quite well. So on that basis, I'd wait till January to see how he goes. By all accounts, he's on a very small wage.
Tiny wage.
Exactly. So you have to reward his progress. You can't keep him on £10,000 a week, for instance. You have to reflect his progress.
You'd be stupid not to.
Yeah. So I would edge towards improving his contracts on that basis.
Nat Phillips is 27 years old, 2025. I love the fact that he's still at the club, or was at the club.
I was there when he had the Cruyff turn in the San Siro, Gav. You'll never take that away from me.
You know what? Phillips. He's made his contribution. Good luck to him. Calvin Ramsey, very promising young Scottish right back. He's been on loan. He's had tremendous bad luck with injuries, and we both agree he's got to deal through 2027. You loan him again and hope that he gets better. Moving on to the midfielders. Ryan Gravenbush, 22 years old, deal through 2028. We both agree he's a keep. And you'll have to start thinking contract extension very soon. Wataru Endo, this one's more interesting. 32 years old, 2027. He's got 2 years left on his contract. He actually played quite a lot of games, but he hasn't started any. Or certainly not in the league. Always coming off the bench, last few minutes. There's a role. You need that role at the club. But it shouldn't be him, right? We agree.
Yeah, so and Slot's made that decision. You can tell by the way he rarely plays him. But I do think that they'll get a decent fee. Well, a decent fee in respect that Endo would do a very good job for a lot of clubs in the Premier League. Certainly outside the top 6.
Tyler Morton, 22 years old. We put 2028 as his contract extension. We don't actually know. We just know it's a long-term contract. He's a guy who's been injured. He is that defensive midfielder profile. Maybe he can compete once he gets fit. Maybe he can compete for the Endo job, or what was the Endo job. Alexis McAllister, 26, 2028. He's a straight keep. That one's easy. Dominic Szoboszlai, 24 years old, also contract through 2028. And here we differ, Mark.
Yeah.
I would keep him.
Yeah.
Mark?
Well, I'd listen to offers for Szoboszlai. I mean, look, he's had a great season, kind of. Let's scrub that. He's not had a great season. He's done well for Liverpool since he came from Leipzig, but I do think you can improve on Szoboszlai. I think in that area of the pitch, I think you can get better.
Curtis Jones, 24 years old, 2027. Keep and extend. We both agree. You made a big deal of the fact that he's from Toxteth.
No, the point is, I think obviously with Trent going, I think it is important for a club like Liverpool, they do have a connection with the fans that other clubs don't have, to have a scouser on the pitch, as they say, is a big thing. And
Harvey Elliott, 22 years old, 2027. This is another situation where we disagree, Mark. You want rid of him.
Well, I don't want rid of him, but my point is that I think Arne Slot does. And if I'm the sporting director and I'm working with the manager who doesn't play him, you're thinking, well, if you don't play him, we'll move him on and get some money for him, because he's 22 years old, he's got 2 years in his contract. It's a good time to make him move on. He just doesn't play enough. As he
started 29 made 29 appearances.
How many did he start?
0 in the league.
Exactly.
Maybe you don't need to extend him, but I really like the fact that he's very versatile. He scored a pretty important goal. A big goal anyway. In the end, didn't really matter in their win against Paris Saint-Germain. Again, if Slot thinks that really doesn't like him and thinks he's cack, sure. But then Slot probably wouldn't have put him in at the end of that game.
No,
Stefan Bajcetic here. This is a player we both really, really like. Yeah. Now, you may remember him. He's had horrendous injury 2 years ago, missed almost a whole year. He's only 20 years old. He's got a deal through 2027. He is that defensive midfield specialist and also a creative passer. Very elegant player. He was on loan at Salzburg with your pal Pep Linders. Things totally went south there. Then he moved to Las Palmas, where he's been a regular on a team that's fighting to avoid relegation in La Liga. I think you bring him back from your loan and you evaluate whether he can be a contributor this coming season, whether you can give him playing time. Best case scenario, Basetic becomes your Gravenberch's backup and maybe even alternates with him.
Yeah, I have no problem with that. I think he's a very good player.
All right, moving on to the forwards. Luis Diaz, 28 years old, deal expires in 2027. Classic. We both agree we should keep him.
Yeah.
Where we disagree, I would talk new deal with him. You would not.
I think you sit tight with Diaz. I mean, look, if you're prepared to go to the final year with Mo Salah, you can wait for the final year for Luis Diaz. And he's 28, so he's... What sort of length do you give him? Do you give him a 4-year contract and see what he's like at 32? No, I'd sit tight and see how he goes next season.
Cody Gakpo, 25 years old, 2028. Had a tremendous season. You keep him, but he's another one. You're going to have to start thinking extension a year from now. So that 150 million, that might get whittled down over time. Mohamed Salah, 32 years old, 2027. This one's done. He's been kept and he's been extended. And we both think that they did it at the right price. Yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think if you went into this season and think, right, you're going to keep 2 out of the 3 and one's going to go, I would have prioritised Salah and Van Dijk. I know that Trent's a lot younger and he's, one of the best right backs in the world, but Van Dijk is the leader. He's the best centre half in the Premier League, maybe in Europe, debatable. But he is the real leader of that team. And Salah is the talisman. He scores the goals. He's 32, one of the best seasons of his career. They're the absolute 2 key players in the team. You have to keep them, even for 2 years.
Federico Chiesa, 27 years old, 2028.
Yeah.
You have him as a keep. I have him as a loan.
Yeah, well, I think we're going to get rid of Darwin Núñez. So in that case, I'd keep Chiesa to do what he did this year. If he wants to. I mean,
do what? Like, go and miss chances? No, just kidding.
Well, I mean, look, this year, it must have been a very frustrating season for Chiesa, and he's used to having frustrating seasons. But he's a good player. But maybe now he's fit, or he seems to be fit. Let's see what it's like after pre-season. You might, by keeping Chiesa, you might have a very good player next year if he can stay fit. And I know you're doubtful of that, but a fit Chiesa is a good player.
Darwin Núñez, 25 years old, 2028. We both agree on moving him on, funnily enough. Where we disagree a little bit is I think he actually has more of a market than you think.
So there's a report in Portugal last week that Benfica will be due a £5 million payment if he starts 60 games in the Champions League and Premier League. He's now on 59, and he hasn't started since his 59th game. So that was 5 games ago. So if Liverpool are now holding him back from starting again to save them £5 million, that tells you what's happening with Darwin Núñez this summer. You can get around £30 million for Darwin Núñez.
I think you might even get a little bit more. Because the thing of, given his age and given the fact that the thing about with Darwin Núñez is he is a high energy player. Right?
Yeah.
He misses a lot of chances. We've all seen that. But he gets into those positions. He works hard off the ball. And I think increasingly there are clubs that value center forwards, not just on their goal scoring ability, but on this other side to their game. So I think there is scope there. Diogo Jota, 28 years old, 2027. We both agree you keep him, but you do not extend.
Yeah.
Can you tell us why? I
think he's in the same boat as Luis Diaz, Jota. I think, always reliable, but I just think you don't need to do it yet. I just think you're 2 years out. You don't need to. They're both 28. I think you sit tight and wait.
2 guys they have out on loan. Ben Doak. He's only 18 years old. He's a long-term deal. He's at Middlesbrough, or was at Middlesbrough on loan. I think he got injured.
Yeah.
As did the other guy,
Jayden
also
Dance.
19, or year old at 19, Jayden Dance on loan at Sunderland. Both have long-term deals.
Yeah.
We agree. You get them fit and you loan them again because there's no room for them in the squad.
You loan them again, and I'd be surprised if they became long-term Liverpool players, but they'll still be moved on for a decent fee, and that'll help keep the wheels turning.
All right, so moving on to our overall assessment. Again, the key philosophical question is, do you tweak the squad or do you overhaul it? And we both lean towards the overhaul for the reasons we said before. As we ran you through the squad, you see there are a number of older players, a number of players who, if you don't replace them now, you will have to probably replace them or think about succession or commit a lot of money to them in a year's time. Just to recap, at the back, they'll have to have a call between Keller and Mamardashvili. Again, I don't think it's that easy to shift Keller this summer because he holds all the cards, especially not if you're going to want to hold out for money. For me, no matter how much I like Mamardashvili, Alisson still has a lot to give beyond the next 2 years.
Yeah.
At the back, this is where we want to do most of our business. I think we're both talking about bringing in a high-end center back,
Yeah.
who can kind of be your third center back,
Yeah.
a left back,
Yeah.
and also a right back if, as we expect, Alexander-Arnold leaves.
Yeah.
Center back, obviously, as we mentioned, Dean Hyson's been mentioned. Obviously, Richard Hughes was previously at Bournemouth, so people take this as a whole, and he's got a £50 million release clause, we think. So I think we'd be on board. That would be a smart signing.
Oh, he's a really good player.
An attacking left back, whether it is Milos Korkas or somebody else, and a right back who can compete with Bradley for the job. Maybe you don't need to go and get an absolute A-list right back. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
And we disagree on Kwanzaa, and we covered that before. In central midfield, you wanted more creativity.
Yeah, I just think that you need somebody who can do the box-to-box run between the lines and create, and I don't think Liverpool have that at the moment. I think they've got...
Alexis McAllister thanks you for the show
No,
support.
listen, I think he's a very good number 6 for me, but I don't think he's...
You think of him, that's interesting because I know they've played with the two in front, but it's Gravenberch who sits for me.
Yeah, they kind of sit together from what I've seen, but I think... listen, McAllister for me gets starting team close to us, but I think you need a bit more creativity ahead of him. That's where the Szoboszlai thing comes in. I think you can dispense with Szoboszlai and get somebody better and more creative in that at the top of the midfield. I
would look to upgrade the Endo position, which is defensive midfield. I would make that a priority. You may have the solution in-house with Basitic if he has a tremendous summer. But I do think that's something that needs to be addressed. I don't think Ryan Gravenberch can be expected to start every game like he did last year and have the kind of season he did last year. So Gravenberch is more of a slow burn. Gravenberch and Szoboszlai were effectively playing new positions this year. Yeah. Which is why I think you're being unnecessarily mean to Szoboszlai.
I'm not being mean to him. I'm just being, I have to take a ruthless look at this, an objective.
And finally, up front, we both agree on a center forward. I'll be really curious to see how they do because, Liverpool, weirdly, and going back to Klopp with Firmino, have kind of had atypical, the club of Fowler and Ian Rush and whatnot. They've had pretty atypical center forwards. Yeah. I think Isak would fit 100% because Isak has the versatility.
Yeah, he can float around.
Another more traditional center forward, a Benjamin Sesko type, might not do that as effectively.
Myself and James Ollie were chatting about Harry Kane recently, and James thinks that Liverpool will be a great move for Harry Kane. I'm not too convinced. But if they're looking for a short-term fix, maybe. But I disagree with James on that because I think that a 32-year-old Harry Kane alongside a 32-year-old Salah isn't ideal. But that sort of player who can play centre forward but can also drop off, I think would be a very good... The Firmino role, like you say.
Overall, though, Liverpool, future looks bright. They just can't screw it up this summer, though.
No, otherwise, as good as Liverpool have been, there is a danger that if they don't make the right changes this summer, that they might have a Chelsea or a Man United season. Man United only finished 7th under David Moyes. I think Chelsea were like 10th after Conte left. Yeah. I'm not suggesting a cliff that steep, but they could, with Arsenal getting better, with Newcastle getting better, with Man City like to get better. Liverpool could find they go back a bit if they don't make the right decisions.
It's funny you don't mention Manchester United getting better.
Not for a while yet.